Hey, yeah, last night I caught up with um, the two final episodes of The Rings of Power for season one, and uh, the 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 episodes leading up to the penultimate episode and the one before that of the House of Dragons. So there's one more in the season for House of Dragon for this its first season. And it's kind of an interesting contrast of two shows, which I talked about before. The Rings of Power getting a lot of hate on in the in the wide culture of, I guess, the internet in general, but also just sort of general media of people not happy with this loose adaptation of J.R.R. Tolkien. They're basically taking stuff that's very, very loosely um, written about and kind of extrapolating and coming up with a story. A story which actually I find it started out very slow, but seems to be kind of like, okay, we're building. They're well aware that they have, theoretically at least, are committed. Amazon committed to 5 seasons, and I guess it will all depend on whether it completely crashes and nobody's watching it, or if that will be a thing. But that's what they're going for. So you can tell that it's like, okay, this is the opening act of this show, and so far I've actually kind of enjoyed it. I enjoy the various characters there, especially the Harfoots and the interactions between interactions between the Elrond, the elf, and Durin, the dwarf. That's definitely been the kind of the highlights. Those, um, with the stranger, who we find out fairly definitively now who he is, which not that much of a surprise going into it, at least what race he is, what type he is. Yeah, Galadriel may be the slight kind of weak point on the thing, but I'm actually semi-warming to her, and she's come a little bit more into focus just in these last 2 episodes, in a way. Though elf characters can be kind of difficult to do, and she's in the actress, I think, is in a tough spot of how to play. I don't have any great attachment to. I mean, I love Kate Blanchett and her portrayal of an much older Galadriel. So that's not the issue, but she's a little bit has been a little bit in stasis, a little bit locked in her PTSD during this season, so it's been harder to kind of warm to her and see what she's going to do. For House of the Dragons, I actually feel like this show, the House of Dragons, has actually kind of gone down as it's gone along, whereas Rings of Power is sort of slowly ramping up. Rings of Powers feels like it's gone down, just with we lost the two really fine young actresses who played younger versions of the two female leads, and also the characters became more kind of mired in the kind of the machinations, but neither of them seem to be very good players, which is a part of the fun of the Game of Thrones. Is you had all these great players shifting and being very quick on their feet, and these two don't seem to be that. And indeed, there's not like a tremendous number of people you're rooting for on this show. Everyone's kind of one level of despicable or another, to be honest. So yeah, it's been less of an engaging of a show. Um, you know, the person who might be kind of a little finger, got a foot fetish, and is it, you there's yeah, it's just, yeah, you feel like they push forward with female empowerment, but they also kind of like they treat the female characters. Hey guys, up you go. You treat them, you treat them like crap at the same time. I don't know, which is, yes, it's a patriarchal society, so people treat them like crap, but you feel like the show, the story is treating them like crap, not just um, the culture that they're in. I don't know. I don't know. I'm more mixed on that, even though extremely well acted, extremely well, just I guess scene to scene, but it's got kind of an underlying sourness to it, which even kind of the most balls to the wall kind of unpleasantness of Game of Thrones, it also had a bit of verve, and I'm lacking. I'm starting to lack some of that verve in the show, but I guess we'll see as it goes along there. But yeah, it's been interesting. Like, okay, Rings of Power, super hated, and like there's been other things that I have not liked that have had that kind of negative fandom around it. Like the last, is it the Last Jedi? I think it's the Last Jedi. I didn't like the movie, and I watched it in the movie theater, and I was like, oh, okay, I guess this isn't particularly for me anymore, because it just had that sense of like, no, fuck you, fuck off. And it was like, oh, and that's a shame. And I felt myself pretty much detach from Star Wars after that. So much so I never actually saw the third, what sounded like even worse entry in that trilogy. Um, Strangely enough, Rogue One, which I was like, oh, it's okay, and then I kind of like, I didn't like it. In retrospect, with the other ones, is actually kind of risen up as better, even though it had a lot of troubles and had a very well documented kind of rewrite reshoot thing, which kind of does still make it kind of a rather muddled movie. But I never participated in the kind of the hate for it. Well, no, that's not true, because I did watch a lot of negative videos on it that were picking it apart in a way that sometimes I felt I liked. It wasn't like, attacking the actress or making, it was making fun of the movie, which I was fine with. But in some ways that soured me on Star Trek movies. Of just I was obsessively watching that kind of stuff, and I made a real point with the Rings of Power that it was like, okay, there's all these negative videos out here on this. Some of them are people I knew. It's like, okay, you know what? I'm just going to let them go. I'm going to focus on the positive. There's a couple of channels that are like, oh, I think this is an interesting adaptation, and we're going to talk about it and what it can explore and stuff. And that's what I've done. And I set aside kind of the rah, 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 negative stuff. And I still know it's there, because you can't help but live on the internet and hear, oh, people are hating on this. But it's like, you know what? I'm not seeking it out. I'm just enjoying it myself as my own private thing. And if other people don't like it, that's fine. And I'm sure they have good reasons, but I don't have to participate in that. I don't have to kind of spoil my enjoyment by listening to them kind of niggling away at it, or what I consider niggling it away at it. And maybe in the future, I'll self-select some more thoughtful critics on the piece, just to hear what they have to say. And maybe that will hopefully that'll improve my enjoyment, because we're actually talking about something now. I mean, the big thing that turned me off about all this negative stuff is people were screaming about how terrible this was before they'd seen a single frame of the actual show, or they'd seen a full episode of the actual show, which was just like, okay, well then you're just hating it because you've decided to hate it. Now, people who are like cautiously optimistic and then have decided, okay, I've seen it, I saw the whole first season, and I have these criticisms which lead me to say I don't like it as a show. All respect to them, but for the people who are like determined just to hate something, fuck you. I don't have to listen to you. Goodbye. All right, that's me yakking about my big ingestion of fantasy this weekend, where, yeah, four episodes chocked full of Tolkien, of J.R.R. Martin, G. G. Martin, definitely spoiled for fantasy at the moment, which is quite awesome. Awesome, awesome, awesome. All right, I've been Jay. More videos later. I'm going to go have a bath.